Have you ever wanted to get into the Ivy League? Have you dreamed of the successful life you'd have if you did so? Have you watched hundreds of thousands of videos trying to find an answer to the age-old question of, how do I get in? And never found one? Well, sit back, relax, and take it all in. Because you're about to learn how to do just that here today. But before we get there, let me tell you a quick story. It all started the spring of my senior year of high school. On a cool spring day in late March of 2018, I awaited the results of my Princeton, Harvard, Stanford, and Yale applications. Seconds turned to minutes as time slowed down to a near stop in the hours leading up to the dreaded application release time. After what felt like 5 years later, it was finally 7 p.m. I took a breath and opened up the application portal. My heart was racing as I anticipated the result. Would it be an acceptance? A rejection? What would the outcome of this decision be? The page loaded. Time slowed to a stop. I took another breath and clicked on the decision portion of the portal. Everything seemed to move in slow motion as this page loaded. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4. It finally loaded. And almost immediately I saw a word that caught my eye and ultimately changed my life forever. Congratulations. I got into Princeton, Harvard, Stanford, and Yale in the spring of my senior year of high school. And if you're interested in the full story, head over to this video to learn some more about that. But in a nutshell, after I got into Princeton, I started working with a number of students and parents to help them get in as well. As I worked with and coached more students, I started picking up on a particular trend. The students I worked with who ended up going to Princeton, Harvard, Stanford, and Yale, my friends at the universities, and other people I knew who were students there, tended to have some things in common. Curious, I looked into this further, researching different YouTube videos to see if my observations were on the right track. And just like I thought, people who were accepted into certain schools like Princeton, Harvard, Stanford, and Yale tended to fall into certain archetypes, certain groups, and those who actually made it into the universities needed to have similarities in their application and how they went about getting into these type of schools. And that leads me right into this. If you haven't watched this video here, I suggest you pause here, watch it, then come back to this video to get a background on the different types of schools and the types of students each school tends to accept. However, as a quick refresher, the different school types are Humanities Havens, schools that specialize in the humanities and tend to accept students interested in those fields. Technology Towns, schools who specialize in the STEM fields and tend to accept students who are interested in STEM as well. Political Science Paradises, schools who specialize in politics and the social sciences and tend to accept students who are interested in those fields. And finally, Business Boroughs, schools who are dedicated to their business schools and accept students interested in business and the finance spaces. Similar to that on the student side, the 5 common student types are the STEM Scholar, a student whose resume is peppered and colored by their passion for and participation in the STEM fields. The Humanities Intellectual, a student whose extracurricular experience in high school is dominated by their experiences in the humanities. The Sharp Social Scientist, a student obsessed with the social sciences and spends a lot of their time exploring that passion. The Professional Polymath, the student who's interested in a number of different subjects and extracurriculars and does them all very well. And then finally, the Athletic Academic, an athletic student whose resume is mostly composed of their athletic achievements and accomplishments. Now, Stanford is a technology town, so the advice given in this video will be the best advice any student should apply if they hope to get into not only Stanford, but similar schools like it as well. With all that being said, here's the strategy and advice each type of student can use to get into a school like Stanford. We're going to look at what it takes for each archetype of student to get into a school like Stanford and what they would need to do each year, starting from their freshman year going all the way to the winter of their senior year to have the best chance of getting in. Having covered all of that, let's start with the very first student type, a Humanities Intellectual. In general, when applying to schools like Princeton, Harvard, Stanford, or Yale, the Humanities Intellectual have the toughest road ahead of them when it comes to getting into these different elite schools. It's no different in this case. For a school like Stanford, the average acceptance rate multiplier for a technology town for this type of student is a dismal 0.21. That, coupled with Stanford's average acceptance rate of 5.2%, makes the Humanities Intellectual acceptance rate to Stanford a depressing 1.1%. Or, in other words, for every 91 Humanities Intellectuals who apply, only one of them, just one, will be accepted. As a result of that, Humanities Intellectuals, or aspiring Humanities Intellectuals, need to be very strategic with their applications to be that one person chosen out of the 91 who apply. So let's take a step back and head to freshman year. How exactly would this strategy start? And what would a student who is a Humanities Intellectual, or an aspiring Humanities Intellectual, need to do to put themselves in the best position to succeed later on down the road? So you've just entered high school. This is where the college race truly begins. Depending on how you start this race, you'll either have a much better chance of getting into school of your dreams, or those dreams may be much, much harder to achieve. This year, it's tough to know with 100% confidence what type of student you are, as well as what type of things you may want to do in the future. So what you should do during this time is explore. Take a number of different classes you think you might find interesting, do a number of different extracurriculars you're curious about, and figure out the things you don't want to do. This way, when you do eventually decide what it is you do want to do, you have a much clearer idea of what that may be. Some important questions you'll want to answer during this time are: 1. Which fields do I find the most interesting? Is it math and sciences and/or the humanities and social sciences? 2. Are there any sports that interest me enough into committing to them for a full season for a number of years in order to make a varsity spot and qualify for a leadership role? Figuring these two things out at this point in your high school career will give you a massive leg up over the competition and place you in a phenomenal position to succeed later on in your high school career. Now the summer of your freshman year is over, and you're a little clearer about what you want to do. You know that you don't like math and science too much, and you're not interested in participating in a sport for a number of years in your high school career. With that information, you head into your sophomore year. So you've entered your sophomore year. You're not quite a veteran at the school, but you know your way around and you're familiar with how the school works. By this point, you're friendly with some of the teachers in the school and have a much better idea of your place in this school environment. This year, however, things are going to become much more serious, especially for those who are interested in the humanities or social science fields. During this year, it's important that students understand and start to distinguish themselves as either a humanities intellectual or a sharp social scientist. While most other student types have a little bit of wiggle room to figure themselves out a little bit more, aspiring humanities intellectuals have to make this decision by the end of their sophomore year so that they can take the required classes and, most importantly, do the required extracurriculars to build on their resume and stand out to the colleges they want to get into. If a student is leaning towards becoming a humanities intellectual at this stage in their high school career, they need to ask themselves 3 critical questions before the end of this year. 1. Am I more interested in the humanities or social science fields? 2. If I am interested in the humanities fields, which classes do I need to take next year to put myself in a good academic position heading into my senior year? 3. What humanities and/or social science extracurriculars can I do and commit to starting in my sophomore year so that I can attain leadership positions in those clubs by the fall of my senior year? Answering these 3 questions will set a student up for maximum success when they truly start the college application process in the summer of their junior year. Having answered those questions and completed their sophomore year, here's where things start to pick up for this type of student. The summer after their sophomore year, while most students might be at the beach or on vacation, if this type of student wants to give themselves the best chance to get into Stanford, they need to double down on their extracurricular and academic achievements. This is especially critical because Humanities Intellectual's tangible achievements are the most important part of their resume when applying to a school like Stanford. We'll cover this in a little bit, but for now, all you need to keep in mind is that the most important part of a Humanities Intellectual's application is the grand sum of achievements they've had during their time in high school. It's important that they start adding to this list starting the summer of their sophomore year. Now, out of all the years in their high school career, the junior year of a Humanities Intellectual's high school career is the most important. During this year, they have a number of questions to answer, things to complete, and places to visit before the start of their senior year. During this year, we advise that all students applying to schools of an elite caliber like Stanford take AP level classes in both the humanities and social science fields, if possible. Courses like AP United States History, AP Literature, AP Language and Composition, AP Government and Politics, etc. all fit this bill and are fantastic coursework for a student's academic resume. Beyond that, students who are of this archetype who are applying to schools like this need to focus heavily on awards and accomplishments in both their academic disciplines and extracurriculars. Achievements such as valedictorian or salutatorian, winner of their state history bowl, runner-up in their state poetry slam are things that will give them an edge over other applicants to this school. Because the competition is so stiff, remember, only 1 out of 91 Humanities Intellectuals who apply to Stanford will be accepted. A student must stand out in a substantial way to even get their foot in the door and give themselves the opportunity to be accepted. These noteworthy achievements will be what truly separates those who will ultimately get into Stanford from those who won't. Now fast forward to the spring of your junior year. At this point, you're rounding the corner headed towards the final destination, the winter of your senior year. This point in time is important for all students, but especially for Humanities Intellectuals. You need to have a plan and strategy for the fall application season in the fall of your senior year. This means asking for recommendations from teachers you want early, touring the schools you're interested in that spring or summer before your senior year, and taking the SAT at least 2 times before the end of the summer before your senior year, and starting the process of writing the initial draft of your common application essays. With all this in place, we can fast forward to the summer after your junior year, where everything is taken into account. This summer is the most important summer for any student, but especially for Humanities Intellectuals. Your goal for this summer is to finalize your application essays and do extensive research on the schools you're looking to apply to. By doing this, you'll be in a fantastic position to capitalize on the very thing that'll be key for you getting into Stanford: early admission. I could use an entire video speaking on this point in time in students' application alone. But what matters now is that you've completed as much as possible of your application to these various schools, or at least set yourself up to do so before the autumn of your senior year. Now finally, we enter the fall of your senior year of high school. Here's where we can go into the nitty-gritty details as it relates to a specific strategy when applying to Stanford as a Humanities Intellectual. Now it's finally the autumn of your senior year of high school, the time when everything you did in the previous 3 years of high school comes into play. Before this point, everything you did was simply set up to help put you in the best position to get into Stanford. Now let's talk about how you'll actually get it. The first thing you'll want to do is apply early. I cannot stress this enough. But students who apply early, especially those who are among the top level applications to a given school, get a tremendous boost in terms of their odds of making it to the school they want. Let me explain how. Looking online, the accepted early application rate for Stanford hovers right around 9%. Now, do you know what the regular application acceptance rate is? Less than 2%. For humanities intellectuals, these numbers are even more extreme. For them, their early application rate is a mere 1.6%. And do you know what their regular application rate is? Less than 0.5%. You heard that right. Less than 0.5%. In the regular decision round, less than 1 out of 200 humanities intellectual applications are accepted. These two wildly differing numbers is why a student who's interested in going to an Ivy League school or an Ivy League caliber school needs to apply early to that school. They get a substantial increase in their odds of getting in because there are simply fewer people applying, and thus more of a chance to wow an admission officer and claim those critical yes spots early. The next thing all humanities intellectuals should do if they want to be the 1 out of 91 humanities intellectuals who apply to Stanford and get in is to focus on their tangible achievements and accomplishments during their time in high school. This is critical. The trap many humanities intellectuals fall into when applying to different schools is that because there are lots of them, many of the applications to elite schools from humanities intellectuals tend to be and sound very similar. Even while trying to stand out by doing a number of school-based clubs and taking a number of AP Humanities classes, most of the applications to these higher level institutions sound very similar. While all of these different things are great things to participate in and fantastic for a resume, if everyone is doing it, it doesn't help each student out that much, especially when it comes to a school like Stanford, who once again accepts only 1 out of 91 humanities intellectuals. The last thing a student should do is present themselves in a similar way to other applicants. That is the fastest way to have their application trashed and their chances of going to Stanford flushed right down the drain. Here's where tangible accomplishments, both academically and with extracurriculars, come into play. While these parts of a student's resume are great, leadership, passion, etc., these parts of their resume are very qualitative and subjective. One can't measure how much a leadership ability a person has, how passionate they are about something. However, what a school can do and can measure is how well a student does relative to their peers in a competition. If they ranked first out of 10,000 applicants, it's very clear that, in that endeavor, this student is more talented or has more skill than their peers. This is what is so critical about having tangible accomplishments when applying to Stanford as a humanities intellectual. What it does is it takes the guesswork out of an admissions officer's hands in terms of deciding whether or not they should give you a place at the school. By having a number of tangible accomplishments they can look to and evaluate you on, you make the decision for them much, much easier. They can simply look at the list and with 100% confidence give you the yes vote you need to get into the school. The third and final thing humanities intellectuals should do to give themselves the best odds of getting to Stanford is highlight their desire to leave an impact throughout their application. If you remember from our 3 steps to getting into Princeton video, a factor that is often overlooked when applying to college is the culture of the school. Stanford is the school people go to if they want to change the world. And Stanford's culture is one centered around innovation and changing the very nature of how people conduct their day-to-day lives. For this reason, students who have a desire to change the world, to leave an impact, are very attractive to admissions officers as they'll fit right into the Stanford, Palo Alto, Silicon Valley culture. For humanities intellectuals, this desire to change the world need not be writing a Shakespeare-level piece that lives on for the next 1,000 years, or winning a Pulitzer Prize for your work. It could come through your research into the discipline, writing a piece that changes the very way people view writing or literature as a whole. But what matters is the desire to do something bigger than yourself and leave a mark on the world. I could do an entire video breaking down this particular strategy even more, as there are a number of things the Humanities Intellectual could do to improve their application. If you'd like to see that, leave a comment below letting me know, and I'll be sure to make a video diving even deeper into this particular topic. But in broad terms, the 3 steps to getting into Stanford as a Humanities Intellectual are as follows. Step 0. Set yourself up for success. This step is the step that gives you a fighting chance of being considered in the first place by a university like Stanford and getting your foot in the door, so to speak. This means that a student needs to have taken and done fairly well on the SAT, taken a few, if not more, humanities-based AP tests and scored well on them, and also participated in eye-catching clubs and extracurriculars and have attained tangible achievements that will make them stand out long before they ever start to apply to college. This step is the most important step that helps put a student in the proper position so that they're ready for the following steps. Step 1. Apply early. This applies to all students who want to get into a particular school in the Ivy League or an Ivy League caliber school. If you have a dream school in mind that you'd like to go to, make sure you apply early to that school. There are a number of benefits that come about from applying early, but the main one is that your odds of getting into a school like Princeton, Harvard, Stanford, or Yale, etc., can increase by 5, 6, or even 7-fold by simply applying early. Every student, especially a Humanities Intellectual, should capitalize on this advantage by putting themselves in a position to apply early with a stellar application. Step 2. Focus on tangible achievements. This is critical. The trap many Humanities Intellectuals fall into is that after a certain point, all their applications begin to sound very similar. They've all taken similar classes, done similar extracurriculars, and have similar common application essays. What makes an admission officer give an application a second look is a student who has accomplished so much and excelled so much that all applications look mediocre in comparison. The goal here is to stand out so much that admissions officers are forced to give your application a second look and get you much closer to that yes vote you want. Now, step 3. Highlight your desire to change the world. This last step is the cherry on top of the Humanities Intellectual college application. It's what takes a good application and makes it truly extraordinary. The reason for this is because, as mentioned before, culture is critical when applying to college, and most times, a school's culture is overlooked when students apply to a given school. Thus, finding a student who very clearly fits into the school culture would be a breath of fresh air for admissions officers and give them the reassurance they need to put your application to the accepted yes pile. If you're a Humanities Intellectual, following those 3, 4 including step 0, will give you a substantial increase in your odds of getting into Stanford. While this video did go somewhat in depth into this topic, I recommend taking a look at some of the helpful links in the description box below, as it contains helpful material that goes much deeper into this topic than I could have done so here. If you'd like me to make a video diving even deeper into the subjects and the strategies for this type of student, just leave a comment below letting me know and I'll be sure to make one. Now let's move on to the sharp social scientist. Thank you for watching the video. I appreciate all the likes, shares, subscriptions, support, everything. If you'd like to see another video or another school or a different student type in a different environment, just comment it down below and I'll be sure to do that. If you haven't seen the full video, just head to the first link in the description box below. It should be there, or wait 30 seconds till the end of this bit and you can click on the card to the full video or the card to the playlist that covers everything related to getting to Stanford for all the different student types. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you soon with another video.